So we have a new undisputed champion in Drew McIntyre, and I, for one, think that this is a fantastic choice and a fantastic move forward for WWE. I think this is the right decision. I'll get more into that and the reasons and wherefores of why I think that in due course. But yeah, if we just rewind and walk through this episode of Smackdown, which opened up with a segment by Randy Orton. This was interrupted by Trick Williams, and initially I was just like, I am so down for this. If they are going to, if this is going to be the style of a feud between these two, I'm all down for it, because we've been kind of teasing like maybe a Randy Orton a heel turn, maybe you could have a feud with Cody Rhodes. He had that backstage segment, obviously, where he told Cody Rhodes, obviously prior to this episode of SmackDown anyway, that he was coming for the title. So it's all kind of like a moot point. But yeah, I mean, I suppose Randy Orton has a history with Drew McIntyre as well, so that could be another play. So that's always puts doubt in my mind about, what's going to be going to stay on as a feud and what's not. But yeah, if they end up kind of like landing on the Randy Orton Trick Williams feud, I'm all down for that. So we had, but basically this was kind of the start of a Trick Williams actually having a match. It had been. Prior to that, we had Trick Williams take an RKO and get beaten down a bit from Randy Orton, and then Trick Williams had a match with Ray Phoenix. So kind of like there was a little bit of a narrative here that Trick Williams wasn't going in 100%, and yet he was still able to pick up the victory. It was an absolutely great match, to be fair. It was absolutely in-ring performance. Ray Phoenix, he showed us, kind of just, what a phenomenal athlete that he is, as if we needed any reminding. But yeah, the whole kind of like the overall goal of this was to kind of obviously just give Trick Williams this push, and I suppose that in some ways a whole segment with Randy Orton and him beating him down prior to this match and still kind of picking up a win, in a way, Randy Orton is kind of pulling him over. I guess that's sort of like another component of this Trick Williams push. But yeah, the only thing that maybe I didn't like was maybe on that note, I don't think it was necessary for Trick Williams to pick up a win by cheating, by holding onto the title. I don't think that necessarily, although yes, he's a heel and all of that, but then it's kind of like I think that if you're going to give him this real push kind of thing, I don't think you necessarily need him to kind of show that he can. I don't think it was necessary here. I think that maybe if you had him win clean, I think that that would have still just made a stronger statement, if not even more stronger statement. So we had Alexa Bliss and Julia here for the United States title, and this was like kind of reassurance that they were going to be giving Fuddy a little bit more tender love and care to this second run of Julia's title reign, that she was being pitted against somebody of the caliber of Alexa Bliss. And I mean, it's a match that kind of came out of totally left field in a way, because these two hadn't really had a storyline, they hadn't really had a feud, so it all kind of came out of left field a little bit there. But essentially we all kind of got our answers to why this match was happening, obviously, apart from obviously to provide that reassurance that they were going to give this little bit of TLC to Julia's second run. The commentator even mentioned it as well. But yeah, this match kind of like concluded with Lash Legend and Nia Jax getting involved in being down Alexa Bliss. There's this storyline that Charlotte Flair wasn't there because she was at her home with the flu, and so yeah, they beat it. So that kind of kept Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss intertwined, and kept should I say, but it kept Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair's tag team feud with Lash Legend and Nia Jax intertwined. And yeah, I think I was like, I think that there are some little kind of like naysayers maybe who could kind of argue that there was a little bit of a contradictory element here, where it was showing that Julia's United States title run was getting a little bit more TLC this time, but also ultimately it ended up playing a bit of a backdrop, a bit of a second fiddle to just moving the needle with this feud between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair against Lash Legend and Nia Jax. You know, I think that's fair. I think that if anybody made that point to me, I wouldn't have any sort of counter. Well, I do have a counter argument because I'm about to make a counter argument, but I wouldn't have any, you know, I wouldn't really be able to argue with you. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that would be a valid point. But yeah, I would. But yeah, just as that counterpoint, I would kind of say that at least, you know, we are getting more Julia now, you know, and she's not just falling into this kind of like void, and you know, she's getting matches against the caliber of Alexa Bliss, like I said. So you know, there is still some, you know, if you're a big Julia fan, and I think that there's some you can still definitely take some heart and reassurance from this. So we had also match between the MFTs and the Wyatt Six here. So this is a feud that's kind of seems to be going on so long that it's essentially the Wyatt Six's tag team reign has been defined by this, although the titles weren't on the line here because it was 8-man tag. But yeah, and honestly, I thought this match was okay. It didn't really land for me. Maybe it's just the fact that it's been going on a little too long. I mean, I say that. I mean, I feel like a little bit mixed on it, if I'm honest. I do think that it's been going on a bit too long. I do think it's a shame that the Wyatt Six's title reign hasn't really been kind of utilized in the best way, at least for my personal opinion anyway. And you know, and what I mean by that is, like I said, you know, their title reign has essentially been kind of defined by this feud. I mean, but on the other side of it, there is another part of my brain that kind of says, you know, that this was a perfect feud, and it's a feud in the sense that you've had these nice little. You could break this feud into nice little individual spots, like you've had Solo Sikoa face off against Uncle Howdy, you know, and. You've had Tonga face off against Rowan, and I think it's a feud that ultimately has elevated everybody. You know, I think the MFDs have been elevated by it. I think the Wyatt Six have been elevated by it to a degree. And like I said, I think that there's a lot of, you know, little single feuds that you could maybe break it off into. I did like the ending of this match with the Wyatt Six picking up a win, because the MFTs picking up a win, over the Wyatt Six by Solo Sikoa coming out and taking the lantern and you know, causing that distraction for Uncle Howdy to get pinned, and then we see the MFTs kind of go off with the lantern. I think there's another little layer to that feud now, which is that it's going to be kind of like continuing. They're probably going to say this for like a PLE, perhaps like a Royal Rumble, perhaps Elimination Chamber. Could even happen earlier than now, I suppose. Theoretically, it could get announced for Saturday as main event, couldn't it? But I think that they just, wait, dilly-dallying a bit and just kind of like waiting for the right spot to have a final match where they're gonna pull the trigger and put the titles on the MFTs anyway. That would be my prediction anyway. So we had also a debut by Jordan Grace here. Jordan Grace had a debut against Alba Fire. It was, it did everything that it needed to. There wasn't any surprises here, but Jordan Grace was going to pick up a win. Obviously, she did. It ended up with Jordan Grace having this face-off with Jade Cargill as well. So I think that's an enticing feud. It's only kind of tainted maybe by its own predictability in my mind, at least, because I think that you could have Jordan Grace and Jade Cargill face off, and I think it absolutely makes sense. They are both absolute monstrous women, so I do kind of feel like it makes sense. I don't see Jordan Grace winning the feud. I think it's still just a placeholder for, I think the ultimate end goal that I've always been saying is the end goal is going to be that we are going to have Bianca Belair return, and that's going to be the feud. That's going to dethrone Jade Cargill. That's just kind of the way I see it. I think that also that's been part of a call up, we've had some obviously call ups with Trick Williams and Jordan Grace and Lash Legend and well, and I just think that I think Jordan Grace has been called up as that little placeholder, because I think before then, apart from maybe Charlotte Flair, where you could who I think is also another potential candidate. I think there's been these little little kind of trickles where I think that we are going to basically get Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss splitting up and kind of going into these single feuds. I think that gives Jade Cargill maybe another potential placeholder if they need it. It all, I guess, depends on the time scale of Bianca Belair's return there, I'm all down for it. And so we had we had a little bit of a backstage segment here with Gargano trolling Fraxium as well, where we basically had. Where he was basically wearing the mask, and then he pulled up to reveal that it was him, and then he ended up getting chased off. We had the announcement of a tournament that's going to basically culminate in a fatal four-way. We had got Randy Orton against The Miz, which kind of like makes sense. They've had obviously this little kind of mini side feud over the last couple of weeks. I think it's one of the easiest ones to call. I don't think that there's a world where Randy Orton is losing that. We've got a Damian Priest against Solo Sikoa, I believe. I would imagine, if I was to predict now, I would say probably Damian Priest just because would pick up a win there, just because I think that Solo Sikoa, like I said, will probably be tied in with all of this tag team feud, why it's 6 stuff. I suppose there's a bit more of a direction, more of a storyline, I guess, with Damian Priest, who hasn't really had anything to do, and that's part of the reason why he's been being just locked in this feud with Aleister Black for the past like 1,000 years. So yeah, and that's maybe the only other thing where I could see Damian Priest not picking up a win if Aleister Black comes in and causes an interference and this feud goes on for another 1,000 years. But yeah, I said it's not an easy one to call by any means. But yeah, if I'm gonna listen to my gut instinct, I would go for Damian Priest. We got a US title rematch with Sami Zayn going up against Ilya Dragunov as well. I think Sami Zayn is winning now. Obviously, we know that there's going to be a fatal 4-way in Canada, I believe, and then we got Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, Sami Zayn is going to be totally over in both those countries, so I think that there's that. And also, we had obviously Sami Zayn's title reign get dethroned by Ilya Dragunov, so I think it makes sense here that Sami Zayn picks up a win here. But going to be a banger match. Obviously, two great athletes in their own right. Obviously, yeah, will still be an absolute banger match. And who's the other one that we got? We got it's Matt Cardona, isn't it? Matt Cardona against Trick Williams as well. So that'll be another solid match. I think that's another little bit of a tricky one to predict, but I'm gonna again go with my gut instinct, and I'm gonna say Trick Williams just because I think he's the one who probably get maybe the most mileage out of a push, maybe. But yeah, I mean, and obviously just because, and so this is all going to come out in the fatal 4-way, where the winners are going to make up this fatal 4-way that's going to basically decide the number one contenders match. So what this essentially is given, and because of the time scale, this is quite a smart move because of that time scale. In order for that time scale to work, we basically have all 4 of these tournament matches taking place next week at Smackdown. So obviously Smackdown has been extended to 3 hours. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense actually to really cram this, this whole tournament into that and just fill it out. And so I think that obviously then you've got this fatal 4-way that's going to be at Saturday night main event, I think. So it's going to be basically continuing this trend which we've had over the last few Saturday night main events, really, where suddenly Saturday night's main events actually matter. They got some, significance. They're not just these almost like TV special type things. They actually matter now, and so I think that was a smart move. And yeah, and then obviously we're gonna have our number one contenders match at Royal Rumble. So going off kind of a logical, I've just kind of gone through, I would predict that that means we're getting Sami Zayn against Drew McIntyre at Royal Rumble. Depending on, if they keep the title on Drew McIntyre. I mean, and they'll get that into good, but yeah, I mean, there's all lots of ifs and buts between them, but yeah, that's kind of like how I would go for it. So yeah, we got a basically an absolute banger of a match, and if it wasn't for the main event that we got, if it wasn't for the fact that obviously this main event that they had lined up was just through the roof. This match between Carmelo Hayes and Shinsuke Nakamura would have been just the match of the night if it hadn't been for that. This match was just phenomenal. Not only was it great to see Shinsuke Nakamura back and kind of being utilized, but yeah, just 2 great athletes, great in-ring performances. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that Carmelo Hayes was picking up a win here, but there were little spots that really made me kind of, there were those 1-2 moments in this match that made me kind of like doubt it. It was just just a phenomenal storytelling, phenomenal in-ring performances by both of these great athletes. So yeah, just an absolute banger match, and like I said, I would have had no hesitation whatsoever pulling that as the match of the night if it wasn't for this main event that we got, which of course was a 3 stages of hell match between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes for the undisputed title. So yeah, and this was just fantastic. I mean, you could not go any bigger. And so yeah, basically, if I briefly talk about what my thought process and what my expectation was going into this match, I felt very mixed about it because I did feel that there were a lot of reasons to put the title on Drew McIntyre, right? I felt that it would be the biggest surprise. Not that I'm saying that I think you should go down this like Vince Russo kind of route of just doing things for surprise value, because I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should only be pulling shocks if it makes a certain amount of sense. But yeah, also I do think that it just it adds more intrigue, and also I kind of felt that this has to be the grand finale to their feud, because I don't think there's another level to go beyond that. You've already had this 3 stages of hell match. I don't think you have a way to go escalated beyond that really too much, and I do think that if you had Cody Rhodes pick up a win, I don't really know what you do with Drew McIntyre past that, because he's always been in the main event scene for quite a while, despite having this real downward trajectory of losses. And he would have been beat, if he had lost, he would have been beat by Cody Rhodes 3 times, something like that, however much it is that they fought before. So it would just be kind of like, well, what do you do with Drew McIntyre now? And you could have this sort of, you've got this other sort of like little character arc where he's just like, I got screwed, and you could continue that, but I think it's getting a little bit tiresome now. So I think that there were a lot of reasons to put the title on Drew, which is again obviously is into why I think this was such a good decision. But despite all of that, my brain just told me that WWE were not going to do it. Cody Rhodes is one of the faces of a company. He is like the white knight of WWE, and I just was not confident that they were going to actually pull the trigger on it. And yeah, so I think, like I said, all of that just goes into that surprise element, and it gets people talking, and it just offers a little bit of an intrigue, and it just offers a little bit of leeway to experiment as well, because I think that's one of the things that's maybe been missing. We saw it quite a bit in like the aggression era and all of that, where you had all of these little rooms for like experimenting, and you didn't necessarily have the titles being put on these real big names, and you just had this little experiment. And I think that's great. I think that is a big positive to creativity, where you are just allowed to experiment. And the good thing about how wrestling is structured is, even if it doesn't work, even if this ends up being poor reign by Drew McIntyre, or it ends up being a mistake, it's fine, because you can always just go back and retcon it, and just if they wanted to put the title back on Cody Rhodes, they could just do that. So it's just but yeah, in the meantime, why not just experiment? Let's just get a little bit more unpredictability. Let's explore these uncharted waters a little bit more. So yeah, I think that it was a great decision. The only thing the little niggle that I that I had with this, and it's sort of, I guess, one I would have, not because of this match, but just because of the three stages of how structure, is that you always kind of like, just the way that it's structured, the fact that it's a three stages of hell match where you are going to basically have, it means that whoever picks up the first pinfall, it kind of takes something out of the second match, or the second pinfall, because it's all the more premeditated. Do you know what I mean? Where you kind of go, well, clearly the other person is picking up a win for a 1-1 because it needs to go to a three stages of hell match. I mean, maybe this is a point where somebody points out that they've had the three stages of hell match that hasn't actually gone through the three stages, maybe, and it kind of like needs my point. But yeah, that was the only thing. But you know, that is kind of like how it played out. We had the first stage, which was just a regular wrestling match, which Drew ended up picking up a win here in typical dastardly fashion. And then we had moved into a Falls Count Anywhere match, which is Cody Rhodes ended up picking up a win to take us into the third stage of hell, which was a steel cage match. Yeah, just all the way through it, I thought these two had really good chemistry, really great storytelling, just some real good spots here, just absolutely fantastic. But like I said, you know, I love the result, but I think the cherry on the top here was the return of Jacob Fatu and how they utilised it in this. I think that was just the cherry on the top. That was just a little sprinkling on top of our ice cream here, because it meant that not only had we got Jacob Fatu coming back, which is great. I absolutely love Jacob Fatu. I've been really missing him on SmackDown. So it's great to have him back. So there's that. But also, you know, it elevated the surprise. It elevated the swerve, because Drew McIntyre is basically just about to come out of a cage. We get this hooded figure. I kind of rolled my eyes. I thought, oh my God, you know, we've no longer just got the hooded figuring of Austin Theory, so I was like, oh. So, but this was different. We had the reveal that it was Jacob Fatu. It was he stops Drew McIntyre leaving the cage to pick up a win. He attacks him. Obviously, there's been this storyline, although it's been a bit of an abandoned storyline in a way of, you know, Jacob Fatu has been out with an injury, but in the world of kayfabe, that he's been out because he was attacked by this mystery attacker who we don't know, and there was kind of Drew McIntyre was kind of like a prime suspect here, and yeah, so there was this little bit of like a little bit of a plot thread where we basically had Jacob Fatu returns. He stops Drew McIntyre leaving the cage. He beats Drew McIntyre down because he's basically he essentially has made Drew McIntyre that person who attacked him. And you know, it's like, oh, Drew got screwed again and all of that. So, and then just what basically happened is we had Cody Rhodes just kind of like put his hand on Jacob Fatu's shoulder. Jacob Fatu turned down and started beating Cody Rhodes down as well. And I was like, what the hell? And I mean, there's going to be this little bit of but there's been this little bit of rhetoric where this was an indicator that Jacob Fatu doesn't actually know who attacked him, and we're going to get this continuation. I think that's one possible route. But there's another element to this where people are going to go, well, this could lead into a Cody Rhodes heel turn because it could be revealed that Cody Rhodes was the person who attacked him. I'm begging WWE not to do that. I just think that's a really bad idea. Yeah, I do just think that that's going back into that kind of like Vince Russo type night where, you know, like I was saying before, you know, I think that shocks and surprises are great, but there has to be a certain logic behind it, and you know, and it's sort of like Cody Rhodes just being the mystery attacker on Jacob Fatu doesn't make any sense. He's been the face of a company. You know, he's been the white knight of a champion, you know, and it's sort of like it just hasn't fitted with Cody Rhodes' character, because even if he was a champion who had a beef with Jacob Fatu, he would just call Jacob Fatu out. He would be, you know, Cody Rhodes has never been the guy to go round sort of attacking people backstage, and well, although we did with Drew McIntyre, but you know, that's kind of different. But yeah, it's just never been yeah, so yeah, just please don't do that. And I'm not saying I'm against the Cody Rhodes heel turn. I think that we can arrive at a point where that would be okay to pull the trigger on. Just don't do it. Just don't do it in this way. But yeah, sure, maybe you could get a little bit more mileage out of it. The way I would interpret it though is I think that it would be just that Jacob Fatu has obviously inserted him has intervened in this match because he's basically wants to expose Drew McIntyre as his attacker, and the reason why he just turns and attacks Cody Rhodes is just because, you know, Jacob Fatu's character is just that. It is very kind of erratic. It is very spontaneous. He is all gas, no brakes, and he just, you know, he felt that Cody Rhodes was just kind of like interfering and trying to get in his way of him kind of brandishing his vigilante justice on Drew McIntyre. So he was just squashing anyone who got in his way. And in this case, he felt Cody Rhodes was getting in his way, and you know, and all of that. So I do kind of. So yeah, I do think that that's probably more of a realistic angle than yeah, that oh, maybe he thinks Cody Rhodes attack was a mystery attack as well. So yeah, basically he's beaten down Cody Rhodes, and this just leaves Drew McIntyre just to fumble out of the cage and crawl away. And another really nice touch was that I didn't think that it was, you know, because of what had gone down in this match, we didn't have Drew McIntyre, you know, getting up and gloating or anything like that. He's just crawling away from the cage, with clutching onto the belt. And yeah, I just thought that was a really nice touch, you know. The best things you could do with this, I think you could always do it. Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu feud if you want to. I mean, an obvious play here is you could do a triple threat between Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, and Jacob Fatu as well. That's another play. You know, I think there's all number like different angles. You could even, like I said, elongate this little whodunit with Jacob Fatu if you wanted to, but yeah, don't use this as a catalyst for Cody Rhodes heel turn. I'm not a fan of that. But yeah, like I said, guys. So yeah, SmackDown is like 3 hours now, and yeah, just from what we've got from these past couple, they've delivered. I've got to say, you know, it's not going to last. Obviously, it's impossible that you're going to, you know, do these 52 shows in a year and everyone is going to be about it, you know. But yeah, obviously we've had this. And we've obviously got a Jack-filled SmackDown this next week, obviously with all 4 of those matches in the number 1 contenders tournament happening. So yeah, I think that SmackDown has started 2026 with an absolute banger. And yeah, the fact that we that we now live in a world where Cody Rhodes has been dethroned by Drew McIntyre. I just think that this means that WWE has just gone, has hit 2026 harder than maybe any of us dared dream that they would. So yeah, just absolutely like fantastic. Yeah, just like I said, just really loving it. Just really intrigued to see what they do this next week, and yeah, so I will be there to review that episode for you. So but as for this one, this pretty much like wraps it up. So yeah, thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're a WWE fan, I'm sure you're gonna find some stuff to enjoy on this channel, because we're uploading the regular WWE content. I felt a little bit behind with the WWE content over the holiday, so I apologise to my followers for that. But yeah, yeah, like I said, then let me know down in the comment section about what your own thoughts on this Smackdown was, or what your viewpoints is, or what your fan theories are. All of our fun stuff. Let me know down in the comment section. And yeah, until next time, I will see you guys on the next video. You guys take care.